Colleagues, friends, comrades, since this is the first occasion that we are gathered as an extended PPP family, since we have made the decision to have Elizabeth Harper as our new prime ministerial candidate, may I, on your behalf, on behalf of the PPP family gathered here today, say a special thank you to Prime Minister Samuel Hines. Prime Minister, thank you for the struggle that you have shouldered jointly with us. Thank you for your decency and integrity and hard work. Thank you for being strong in the face of the most vile and pernicious attack that the opposition waged against you. You withstood those attacks with dignity, and it was largely because of who you are. You never lost faith in us and the path that we chose to take this country forward. You never lost faith in Chedi Jagan's dream. And today, we're not losing faith in Chedi Jagan's dream. We're going forward to building a country that we're all going to be proud of. And you will be able to look back, Prime Minister, and say, I played a part in that dream. I played a part. And all of you here today, you have and you will continue to play a part. You will continue to play a part on May 11th and thereafter so that we can move this country forward. And Elizabeth, we're happy to have you on board. We know of your capacity for hard work, your patriotism, your love for the country. And the attack has already started. It will be vile against you. Ignore them. Let your dignity and strong character shine too, like our Prime Minister did. They can't change, no matter how much they write about us, how many negative things they say about us, how they try to rewrite history. They can't change who we are. They can't change what we have accomplished. And this, today, I want to talk about our accomplishments. I remember my father. When I was in primary school, I remember how he was. He always tried to show that he was strong, at least mentally. And I saw him cried 2 times in my life. Once when I left this country to go abroad and study, and the second time was when the army came at 6 p.m. in the afternoon at Gibson Primary School. I was in primary school at that time. And they surrounded the school and took away the ballot boxes and chased everyone out. And I saw him cry out of frustration. Frustration because in his own country, he didn't have a say. He couldn't choose the people that he wanted to rule him. Unfortunately, you, the young people here, as you sit here with your bright faces, you don't have to go through that experience again. And my experience was not unique to me. I'm sure that hundreds of young boys and girls who lived in my period looked to their parents and saw them cry in frustration and become angry in frustration because we lived in a freedom, a country where people had snatched our freedom and dignity away from us. And I can imagine in the colonial period, when we were fighting for independence too, how many young boys and girls and people saw their parents made sacrifices too at that time. But we were all guided by the PPP and Chedi Jagan's vision. And the key thing for me The key achievement of the PPP is that we have restored pride to this country. We have restored dignity to people's lives. We're ensuring that no child will have to go through that traumatic experience again. And the thing that bothers me is that the same people who snatched those freedoms away from us, they have come back in new guises. They're there again. The Grenade was presided over the destruction of our economy. He was the one, if you read the 1992 budget, it is a chronicle of a nightmare scenario. And today, even this morning, he speaks about the future and economic strategy and make it seem as though the women who had to go in lines and stand up for hours to get a pint of oil, and that when you could leave Guyana only with $100 US, when people had to line up to get the rice farmers to get twine just to sew their paddy bags, and when you had to go to a KSI to buy food, that is a government institution. He wants to make you believe that that was just a dream, that it did not happen in reality. Because if you believe it's a dream, then you're going to be forgiving to them. But we know the truth. It's not a dream, and we're going to never allow them to relive that experience again. Wouldn't you stand with us on that? And Granger was in the army when the ballots were stolen. He was in the army when the guns went missing that we found with the criminals. And all we were asking him, he was in the army, as Rohi said, when Rodney was killed, and not in a junior position, very, very senior position. And he is saying, I don't have to account for that. That is in the past. So I'm new, I'm fresh. Forget that. We believe people have to come to the table if they're seeking public office and account for their record. And Granger must account for his record to the people of this country before he attempts to be their president. Because how do we know he's not going to return to that period? And in fact, I think his whole economic strategy, his own mindset, his philosophy is dominated by that period of Burnhamism. They've gone back to the old Burnham philosophy about 3 vice presidents, a prime minister and a president. That is exactly from Burnham era. They've gone back to reinstituting, they want to reinstitute national service. They argue that Jagdeo's pension will break the treasury. But there are 5 persons now that this nation will have to carry. 2, 3 vice presidents, a prime minister, and a president. And they talk about cutting costs and cutting the VAT so that they can, so that we can spend more money on people. This is all age-old Burnhamism, vintage Burnhamism. And because Granger, I don't want to say anything, but he's getting up there in age. And he is stuck in that mindset. The time warp of the 70s and the 80s. He draws his inspiration, his philosophy from that period. So I was not surprised when Henry Jeffrey, one of their biggest lovers, called his speech at the launch all fluff. It was fluff, more fluff, and all about fluff. And if he wants to talk about the same things that he mentioned, ICT, etc., I can stand here tonight and speak for 4 hours on ICT, new frontiers of growth, our plans for the education sector, healthcare transformation, how we intend to tackle poverty, what we're going to do about sugar in the future, how we're going to ensure that rice farmers can get their paddy sold. We can talk about it. We can talk about that because we have gone through it, we have lived through it, we are working it through. It's not all easy. it is not all easy. And running countries, it's not about an easy affair. But all we have heard from the opposition, I said this in the past when I spoke, I said we know what they're against. They're against the Barbies Bridge. They're against the specialty hospital. They're against the hydro. They're against the Marriott Hotel. They're against helping rice farmers. They're against sugar industry. In fact, they said they'll close the sugar industry. They're against every single thing. You do not run countries by being against things. What are you for? What do they stand for? They never engage in a policy debate. So they're opposed to hydro that will bring cheaper energy to people so that their light bills can come down because the cost of living is escalating in terms of electricity. We import all the oil from abroad that we use. So they want to kill it, but what is their alternative? How are they going to bring cheaper electricity to the country? What are their plans? Nothing. Zero. But they're opposed to ours. Opposed to ours. So comrades, we need to go back to the Chedi Jagan philosophy. I will come to that in a minute. Now, they're saying that they're the change. But how could they be the change? Ramdatan been around for donkey years. Nagamotu been around. Greenwich been around. Granger been around. Carberry been around. Oscar Clark been around. The whole bunch, Sharma been around. Well, he's hiding now. But they've been around. They're not changed. So what they have changed is the name. So they contested 1992 as PNC, 1997 as PNCR, then 2001 as PNC1 Guyana, then the last elections at what? APNU, now APNU AFC. They've been changing their names. That doesn't change the substance of the opposition, does it? Does it change the characters who are there? They're the same people. But let me tell you about change. That if you talk about change in this country, people don't like us to go back to 1992, particularly the opposition. They say, oh, it's too far back. And maybe that's true. But let me tell you, even among ourselves, that's because we've been living the change. Sometimes we don't recognize it. And so, how many of you know that we have transformed the entire financial sector? How many of you know that we have put in place a new Companies Act, a new Insurance Act, a new Bank of Guyana Act, a new Financial Institutions Act, new securities legislation, the Deeds Registry Modernization, a Revenue Authority Act, new procurement legislation, hire purchase legislation. All of these things renewing of the financial architecture for modern, vibrant Guyana. And many I can go through in details about what these acts change. But let me tell you the results of the change. Because we have done that, because we have managed our economy well, today the young people of this country don't have to carry a burden where the debt was 7.5 times the size of our economy. Today, it's about 60% of our economy. Today, you spend less than 5% servicing all the debt of the revenue. You would have them, if you listen to them, believe that we have increased the debt. It's not true. We're spending less than 5% of revenue to service debt. When we got into office, it was 94%. That's change. And the economy was $300 million when we got in office, 300 million US. It's over $3 billion US now. That's change. And they had $100 million in the central bank as reserves. Now it's about 700, 800 million. That's change. And inflation rate has come down to single digits from triple digit in the past. That's change. And with today, aggregate deposits, that's people's wealth in the banking system has grown 15-fold. Interest rates have come down. So businesses can now invest and they can create jobs for people. That's change. That is the kind of change we talk about. We're not just talking about change in a rhetorical way as a slogan. We have done things to change this country. That is why people are sticking with us. Now, many of us don't even remember these changes because we have lived through them. The young ones too, maybe they're not interested. But we let them get away with our short memory, and because of them rewriting history, and they have some very hostile to people, they get away with painting us as people who have not transformed this country. What has changed in Berbice? You can drive on a bridge to come over here. There's a campus in Berbice. The roads are done back. The schools are done back. We've stuck with sugar. We stuck with sugar when the whole world was cutting down and the region was changing sugar. And sugar is vital to the entire economy, not because they like to make things all about racism. It helps everybody, all Guyanese, the sugar industry. That has changed. When 65% of the students had to fail in 1992 common entrance because there was no space in secondary schools to take them, they had to stay in the tops of primary or go to community high, so their lives were finished. Today we are approaching universal secondary education. That has changed. That has changed. And there's been the largest expansion of housing and people's land ownership in our entire history, colonial period and in the post-colonial period. And you drive around, it's not only Jagdeo and a couple of ministers who have big houses. Go around the country and you will see what is happening, the transformation. And if you walk, look, people used to go with bicycle and donkey carts to public meetings. I passed by the Square of the Revolution when the PNC had a meeting. It's traffic jam. They all own vehicles, and there's no progress in this country. No progress in this country. That has changed. And today, what has changed is that the media can criticize the government, and they don't have to worry at night someone will go and pick them up in their homes and fetch them away like in the PNC area. That has changed. They're free to do that. And what has changed is that Parliament today, they can say whatever they want in Parliament. They have a say. We changed the Constitution, put in several committees that they control. Now, we got the Auditor General to report directly to Parliament when he had to report to the Minister of Finance in the past. To Greenwich himself, that has changed. And what has changed is that from no accountability, 10 years under Greenwich. You know, Greenwich never, as Minister of Finance, presented an audited statement to the National Assembly. 10 years. From 1992 to now, every single year we have done it. That has changed. So when we talk change, it's not just about slogans. We're not just talking about slogans. We're talking about reality. We're talking about more call centers for young people and a better quality education. And in the past 10 years, more students have scholarship than the entire period from independence. Now we have, when we had 152 doctors in the public health system, now we have close to 1,000 doctors funded by the PPP, ensure that they're there. Of course, people now, there is no money shortage to buy drugs. We do have problem with drugs sometimes because of the distribution, but not money shortage, not a cent short, because we have the resources to do that. We're expanding healthcare. We tried to expand healthcare in the specialty hospital. They killed it. They thought it was, as I said before, specialty means for special people. Specialty didn't mean for special people. It meant that if your father or mother gets a heart attack, that lives can be saved here in Guyana for $5,000 because they can do open heart surgery. Or if they get some problem with their hip, they can have the joint replaced just here. That is what we are doing that they killed. So comrades, the change has to be about real things. It can't be a rhetorical gaffe about change. And now, let's see what they have done in other places. Let me tell you, the past 3 years must have been a nightmare for Ramatar. Must have been a nightmare. Every plan that the government has put forward, they have tried to stymie. Every single plan. And Donald, you're a democratic man. Sometimes we need to administer something else, some kicks up some asses too. Because we allow them to frustrate, and they use one-seat majority to frustrate everything. They cut $89 billion from the budget in 3 years. $89 billion that would have gone to help the people of this country. It's from Amerindian development, over $4 billion. Now, they go into the interior to campaign, but they don't tell the Amerindian people that they cut from the budget $4 billion. They cut money from the one laptop per family. We were hoping that 100,000 families would get a free computer, the poorest families. We haven't been able to fulfill it because of the cuts that they instituted there. They cut the hydro, a whole range of other things. But more importantly, they said, we're going to bring down this government, take away 2 years from them. That is what the AFC wanted. So twice it happened in our history. We allowed these people in the past to take away 2 years from us through the Hardman-Sten Accord, and now through this new Cummings-Berg Accord, they have taken away another 2 years from us in our term. And you know what AFC said? The reason they will do that is because Ashni Singh restored $4.5 billion of budget cuts. Now, Ashni Singh didn't take the money and put it in his pocket, like you would believe them say. Ashni Singh didn't act illegally. Ashni Singh acted with the consent of the cabinet of this country. He acted correctly. But the money was spent on the student loan program. So they go to the University of Guyana and say, we love students. We're going to make sure the university does well. And they cut over $200 million from the student loan. But people, we don't pay attention to this. We get caught up in their rhetoric, so we think somehow Ashni Singh did something wrong. Ashni Singh restored the money so that the Amerindian projects can go ahead. That is what he restored the money for. And they want to bring the government down because of that. Ashni Singh restored money so the low carbon development strategy could be pursued. That brings benefits to people's lives, comrades. And they cut that. And then they use the cuts as saying Ashni Singh restored it to bring down the government, to say we need a no confidence vote. But it was all a ploy. So we have to be very careful. We have to be careful about the racism that they try to portray. So they've already started, which is the usual thing with them. They do the ethnic count. They say a lot of Indians migrated. And by the way, the American embassy said they gave 51,000 visas, 10 years visas. And guess what? 48,000 people came back. So I was thinking about this, and I'm thinking, you know what? We did a great thing for Guyana, because in the past, nobody would have come back. But because of this country, because of the changes here, people don't want to stay. They go on holiday and come back. They get their stuff. Because you call your relatives in New York, half of them catching their ass too. So you talk about it and what's happened. Talk to the people from Antigua and from Barbados who went there as workers. How many of them are coming back because of hardships there? We have insulated our economy. We have made it strong. It has had continuous growth for the past 7 years. It's doing well in spite of the global recession. And that's why people see progress here. So 48,000 of them come back, and I'm sure the 3,000 others will be running back here soon with another PPP victory. But they do the ethnic count. So Nagamotu said the 11,000 Indians that he got transport on, that he will take that to Apnu. A public statement from Nagamotu that he will deliver 11,000 Indians to the PNC. It's in the papers. So he got transport on these people. This is already the ethnic kind of count. We come from a philosophy. Chedi Jagan believed in ensuring that the People's Progressive Party remain above the fray. People's religion, their race, their gender don't matter to us. If you're part of the PPP family, we embrace you, regardless of your race and religion, because we believe this country can change only if all of its people benefit. And we have no apologies for that. Absolutely no apology. But they consistently, they shout about racism of the PPP, but they practice racism. They whisper campaigns. In the last elections, they went to some of the Afro-Guyanese villages and beat some drums at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, let us throw these Kuli people. Get up, go out and vote, throw the Kuli people. That's the kind of language they use. Anybody from our party who uses that sort of language, we'll kick them out. That is our approach. But they are different. They started the ethnic thing. And comrades, let me tell you, it must be naivety on the part, or desperation on the part of the AFC to link up with APNU. Because one, they've betrayed all those people who thought, who were misled to believing that Ramjatan and Nagamotu really cared for them. They cared for themselves. They've secured vice president's position and prime minister position for themselves. Now, Nagamotu he wanted it in the People's Progressive Party. He contested against Ramatar, he lost. Then he left. But let me tell you something. They're so naive. When we come to decide who, I'm looking for nomination day, who will be the leader of the list. And when they choose a leader of the list, and I suspect it's going to be Granger. Remember, they're contesting as one party. So the leader of the list decides who goes to parliament. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening. Rude awakening. The UF had it in the past, and they will get it. Because they don't have any leverage anymore. There is no AFC after nomination day. There is no FC. There is a PNC, one ticket they have to go with. They can't go with, don't worry with the name AFC APNU. It's to fool people. There is only one list of candidates they can put up and one head of that list. And Granger, I predict, shall be the head of that list. So even if they get thrown out from the APNU, if they get kicked out of parliament, they can't do anything about it because they have no leverage. There is no FC. There is no AFC parliamentarian. There is nothing. It's naivety or ambition, blind ambition, that caused them to even ignore sensibility. Comrades, and so you will see what will happen. We warned in the past election that this is going to happen. They're going to collaborate, and people didn't believe us. And now you've seen it happen. It's going to get even worse for them. But for me, for all of us here, Chedi Jagan's vision of Guyana remains strong. A country living with all of its people living together, a country that is prospering, where every child gets the best education, where the young people can grow up to have a good education and find a job, where people can have increasing leisure, where our economy is expanding, where people have more rights, where they feel dignified and they feel safe in their homes. This is the vision of Guyana that we are all working to get towards. So we need soldiers to make that vision a reality. And the soldiers here have to first of all ensure that on May 11th, we win this one overwhelmingly. And in a two-horses race, everyone especially matters. So we have to do this together. Let us move forward. Let us re-elect the PPP to continue the progress in this country. Thank you very much, comrades.